The rain fell in steady waves over the small town of Rosewood, its rhythm soft against the windows and sidewalks, like nature's own lullaby. Emily Carter hadn't set foot in her hometown in almost 10 years. And yet, as her car rolled down Main Street, she felt as though the town had barely changed. The same sleepy coffee shop on the corner, the familiar red brick library, the quaint lampposts still wrapped in summer ivy, even the way the streetlights flickered just before turning on. But Emily had changed. Time had moved through her like a storm, relationships, heartbreaks, promotions that didn't fill the emptiness, and a loneliness she had tried to silence with busyness. She was 30 now, still beautiful in a quiet, understated way. Her long brown hair was pulled back in a low braid, her dark green eyes tired from travel and emotion she hadn't allowed herself to feel until now. She turned into the narrow side street where a familiar little bookstore still stood, the Book Nook. Her chest tightened. It was exactly the same, worn brick walls, ivy creeping along the edges, and the gold embossed letters above the door. She hesitated in the car for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. She didn't know why she had come here first. She just needed to see it. She pushed the door open, and the little bell above jingled, just like it used to. The familiar scent of old pages and coffee beans washed over her. And then there he was, Jake Bennett. He stood behind the counter, arranging a stack of vintage novels. His shoulders were broader now, his jaw more defined with a hint of scruff. But it was him, the same calm, steady presence. The same soft eyes that once held every piece of her heart. Jake looked up. His eyes locked onto hers. Time stopped. "Emily," he said, barely above a whisper. She felt her heart clench. "Hey," she said, her voice low, unsure. The moment between them was filled with a decade's worth of words unsaid. Jake stepped around the counter slowly, as if approaching a memory. Emily didn't move. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice rough with emotion. She looked down. "I don't know. I just needed to be somewhere that didn't hurt." Jake's expression softened. He stepped closer, his hand hesitating before reaching out, brushing against hers, light, almost accidental. But in that moment, everything inside her broke. The tears began to fall. Not loud or dramatic. Just quiet trails down her cheeks, tears that had been waiting for a safe place to fall. She closed her eyes, her shoulders trembling. And Jake, he didn't say anything. He simply opened his arms, and she stepped into them like she belonged there. Because for a time she had. He held her, firm yet gentle, like something precious. They stood there in silence, surrounded by books and history, and the sound of the rain tapping gently against the windows. Her head rested against his chest, and she could feel the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. Safe. Familiar. "I missed this," she whispered. Jake pulled back just enough to look at her. "You left without a word." Emily looked away. "I was scared. We were so young. I didn't know who I was, and I couldn't be what you needed." Jake sighed. "I didn't need perfect. I just needed you." A fresh tear slid down her cheek. "Did you move on?" she asked quietly. Jake paused, choosing his words carefully. "I tried. A few dates. A few almosts. But no one else felt like home." Her chest ached with guilt and something deeper. Hope. "I kept wondering if you hated me," she said. "I never hated you, he said. "I was hurt, sure. But I always hoped. Maybe you'd find your way back." Emily let the words sink in. The comfort of his voice. The kindness still alive in his eyes. Jake had always loved quietly but deeply. He was the type to stay up late writing letters and never sending them, the type who didn't say, "I love you," unless he meant it forever. And now here she was, older, more broken than before, but standing in the only place that ever truly felt like home. "I'm not who I used to be," she said, almost as a warning. "Neither am I," he replied. "But maybe that's a good thing." They sat together on the worn leather couch by the bookstore's window. The rain kept falling, and the world outside continued on, oblivious to the reunion happening inside. Jake made coffee just like he used to, the same way she liked it, 2 sugars, no cream. She smiled when he handed her the mug. You remembered, she said softly. Jake smiled. I never forgot. They talked for hours about where life had taken them, the heartbreaks, the regrets, the wins that didn't feel like wins. And through it all, the connection between them never faded. If anything, it had matured, deeper, quieter, real. That night, Emily stayed in her childhood home, long since empty after her parents had moved to Florida. The house creaked with memories, but it no longer scared her. She stood at her bedroom window, looking out at the same maple tree that once brushed against her window. She remembered being 18, crying over leaving Jake, and now, 10 years later, crying again because maybe it wasn't too late. Over the next few days, Emily kept visiting the book nook. She and Jake fell into a rhythm. Conversations, laughter, the occasional silence that said more than words. He never pushed, never asked for more than she could give. But she could feel it, his quiet hope. And slowly, she began to feel safe enough to hope too. One evening, as they closed the store together, Jake locked the door and turned to her. I wrote to you, he said. She looked at him, surprised. When? Every day the first year you left. Then once a week after that. I never mailed them. Just kept them. He walked into the back room and returned with a small, weathered box. He handed it to her. Emily took it, her hands trembling. Inside were dozens of letters, her name in his handwriting. So many emotions poured into ink. She looked up at him, tears in her eyes. I don't know what to say, she whispered. You don't have to say anything, he replied. Just know you were never forgotten. Emily hugged the box to her chest. You waited. Jake smiled. I hoped. She stepped closer. What if I still don't have it all figured out? Then we figure out together, he said. Her tears fell again. But this time, they were different. They were healing. Soft. Hopeful. Jake reached up and gently wiped them away, his thumb brushing her cheek. His touch. Her tears. And in that fragile, powerful moment, everything changed. They didn't rush anything. They rebuilt something that had never truly broken, just weathered time. Together, they found laughter again. Long walks, midnight talks, quiet mornings, and soft music. The bookstore became their sanctuary, and their love story slowly unfolded, this time with more intention, more care. They knew life wasn't perfect, but they had something rare, a second chance. Not many people get that. But they did, and they cherished it. Years later, when the rain returned to Rosewood, you could still find them inside the book nook, two souls who had once lost each other, now side by side, surrounded by stories, writing their own.